What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I told myself coming on, I'm taking all the hards.
You what?
Just give me the hard part.
30
God, I forgot about the wager. I would have played the game completely different.
It's not the Ravens.
Who is it? Who is it?
It is actually the Eagles.
Oh, Jalen Hurts!
Yeah, Sterling had 105. Yep.
I'll wager a 30-point.
It's gonna be hard for you to blow this. Respective draft classes. Who was selected higher, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Rodgers.
What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I take to the airwaves, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, to talk about the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, and any recent football news. And I'm very, very excited to talk about the recent news that has gone on with the Buffalo Bills specifically and just the NFL in general, because there's been a lot of craziness. We've been spoon-fed stuff on a day-to-day basis with this league, especially this season. So, per usual, we have a lot to break down. And this week, I have a very special guest that I'm excited to bring along with me. I mean, with that being said, I'm going to bring him right on. Kevin from Cover One, thank you for taking the time, man. He just bounced back from his other show, the Going Deep podcast on Cover One, and he was kind enough to hop right on here. So, shout out to him for doing so, and welcome on.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I look forward to being here. Looking forward to talking about the topics we got. I've heard all about this trivia game. I'm either really, really good at trivia or I struggle. So we'll see. There's times where I don't have a middle ground in trivia. So I'm excited to see how this plays out, as well as the topics to talk about. So thanks for having me on and looking forward to getting into them.
Yeah, of course. We're going to cover a lot of ground. We always do on this show. I try to, cover and, uncover every corner when it comes to the league, on this show, because there always is so much to talk about. And I feel like, at least for myself, talking about the Bills can only get so, oversaturated, I guess, if you will. So that's why I started with this show, making it just about, the NFL in general. And for anybody that's in the comments or stopping in, I appreciate you. Be sure you saying hello, drop any questions you have down there. And we'll be sure to touch on those as well. But we'll get right into things. We're going to start with the recent news. I call it the recent cave paintings around the NFL. And we're going to start with this first event, if you will. Josh McDaniels crushes the Raiders' backdoor playoff hopes, and I was dumbfounded. Oh, Roy, looks like somebody carried their weight right on over. Thank you for popping in, Roy.
Appreciate you, Roy.
So Thursday night football was an interesting roller coaster ride. Thankfully, not one I was a part of. But Josh McDaniels was a suspicious hire going into the year. To start with, they sucked, of course. And as the year progressed, they got a little bit better. And they started, I think they won prior to this game, like 4 of their last 5 or something along those lines. And it looked like there was a potential backdoor shot that the Raiders can make the postseason. And they go against John Wolford / Baker Mayfield and the Rams. And Josh McDaniels' stubbornness, bites him in the ass. What were your thoughts on this game? How insane was this just watching it?
I mean, Baker did his thing, right? Like, I mean, on 2 days of barely playbooking, like they tried to act like he wasn't going to play. I don't know what that situation was. I guess some fake injury / Wolford's out now, but I'm always excited when something like that happens. It's not my team, so when I watch that, I'm interested. It's fun. It's never fun to be a part of it the other way. So generally getting to see other teams struggle in these situations is interesting. And yeah, Josh McDaniels just lost. He just did not do what he needed to do. They didn't contain Baker at that last drive. They put a press coverage, single coverage, to end the game. There's just so many issues in this specific game. I just thought they eventually said we would win this football game. Kind of the Bills do this too at times when they're playing the Jaguars. I think they kind of felt this way earlier this season against the Jets in their first matchup, where they're kind of just like, okay, the Jets played pretty good, but we're going to win it on the last drive. And McDaniels kind of fell in that loop of we're going to stop them here. There's no way they're going to drive the entire length of the field for a touchdown. So I don't mind, because I want to take as many teams out of the playoffs as I can, put some devastation in the rest of the AFC, and move on with my day, because it's Josh McDaniels is just, he has too good of a team, in my opinion, and specifically an offense, to continue to falter.
Oh, yeah, totally. We were talking about this offensive unit being, at least the pass catchers being a top 3 unit between Hunter Renfrow, the season he had last year. Darren Waller's an athletic phenom. Unfortunately, he hasn't been healthy. And then Devontae Adams partnering with his college teammate in Derek Carr, and a team that was already struggling last year, yet somehow made a backdoor run into the playoffs last season, trying to do it again. It's just, the expectations were higher this year. And, of course, Josh McDaniels was the whole question mark, and it's seemingly coming back to bite him. Two questions for you regarding this Raiders team. The first one being, do you think going for that or punting on that fourth one was the right decision, or do you think that was pretty cowardly?
Where it was on the field, the other team's offense, I can't call that. I would have gone for it. Yeah. I want to put that out there. I can't call that one cowardly, though, because I think it's the right decision, because the percentage, if you get stopped there, what you would have heard about, why would you have ever gone for it? Yeah. Very overly aggressive there in that situation. Now Baker does have enough time and field to get it done. I mean, they put him back. It was negated. They put him to the 2. Yeah. It worked out perfectly in that situation. A guy that hadn't even been there for more than 2 days, especially, kind of plays into this. He did stop him. He had an interception on a 50-50 PI call. Could have gone either. And then you had the knocking out of his hand. It did take some crazy scenarios that us as Bills fans have seen with Justin Jefferson and fumbled snaps and other things. Yeah. But it does happen in the NFL. I do think even the Raiders win 9 out of 10 of that time, I believe. So,
yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I guess I think the decision was hated on a little bit more than it deserved to be, just because of the way it all played out, of course. Similar to the quarterback sneak, like you mentioned, the fumble snap in the end zone. Some people were debating whether or not the Bills should have snuck it, in that situation against the Vikings, and we did. And of course, the result was what it was. But I mean, we get a yard there, and nobody thinks anything of it, right? It's the same type of thing in this scenario. But the other question, which I think I'm going to fail to remember now, but the Raiders are an interesting case. I guess we'll come back to it if I really feel like it's necessary. But yeah, that was a Thursday night thriller, and it was fun. It was fun to see, but definitely one that I'm glad I wasn't a part of, at least.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. So the next one, this was also another wild roller coaster, and funny enough, the Lions were favored in this game, and they do come out on top, taking down the Minnesota Vikings. They're winning 5 of their last 6, and it only makes the Bills win against the Lions that much sweeter. Do the Lions have a backdoor shot at the postseason? What are you thinking of them?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with Giants and the Commanders, the other two teams sitting right there. Seahawks aren't anything special themselves. They do, especially really a better drive against the Bills away with an open receiver to end the game that Jared Goff missed, away from being 6 out of 6. Yeah. And that's legit. I mean, losing to the Bills is still legit, in my opinion, going 5 out of 6. And I personally think that they definitely have a backdoor. They're proving that they're just as good as a Vikings team that keeps winning 1-score games. Like a monumental record amount of 1-score games. And we've saw the ways they've had to do them. Even against the Jets 2 weeks ago, the way the Vikings got it done was still weird. Like, I was obviously in that case, I guess, rooting for the Vikings, sure. But it was weird with the goal line stands that they continue to just randomly get, and just a timely interception. Like, it's just too lucky for me. Of all the teams in the NFL, DVOA has them not where they're supposed to be, 3 games higher. They've won 3 games more than their metrics. I don't know. I don't know when it comes to the Vikings, if they're going to be one and done, or if they're going to go all the way to the NFC Championship game against one of either the Eagles or the 49ers. I'm not sure, Cowboys. So I'm not sure exactly how that's all going to play out in the NFC. But I do think the Lions are legitimately in a position to make some noise, and they're good enough. I mean, we'll see what we see from Jameson coming back, catching his first touchdown was cool to see. Unfortunately, it ran into the Bills game, so I wasn't able to break down too much unlike the Rams game. Yeah. I broke down a lot of that. This one I wasn't able to see too much of film on, but it was cool to see Detroit continue to keep it up and run the ball pretty well. Jared Goff's playing good, throwing to Penei Sewell. I mean, it's all around, man. Good win for them. Glad to see somebody take down this 1-score Vikings team and continue to. At this point, you got to take them seriously for a playoff push.
Yeah, one of those that last statement you made, finally happy to see. I mean, going back, about a year now, I've had this vendetta against Kirk Cousins specifically for a very long time, and it's like to the point where he lives in my head, like as far as the NFL, conversation goes. And going to this year, it was one of those things with the Vikings where everybody's talking him up. They're supposed to have this offensive supporting cast that's going to help Kirk carry him through the way. They got Kevin O'Connell now, which was the biggest change, but they have this free agent signing or, transaction on defense that's supposed to get that unit over the hump. They're supposed to be healthy at the whole 9 yards. The team's going to be good. I mean, this year, yeah, it's what the record says, but I mean, game after game, the way they get away from teams that they should be destroying, apparently, according to the record. I'll never forget. I think, it didn't happen long ago, but it was like week 4 or 5 against the Bears, and the Bears, I think they were down 17-3, 20-3, and they were on. I think it would have been a game-winning drive, or at least close to it. And I think the Bears, like 4th or 5th string receiver, catches the ball on the sideline and gets stripped, and the Vikings defense makes a play to save the day. And of course, a play is a play, but that was just one of so many different scenarios in which the Vikings found themselves having to make a big play to beat a team that they should be much better than. And that's been the story of the year.
Yeah, you look at DVOA, and DVOA says the Vikings are the 21st ranked team in the league. Yep. Detroit actually is a lot higher than most people would give them credit for, and that's why I take credence in them having a real playoff position, 11th. So when it comes to the Giants sitting in 24th, to me, it's Washington in 17th. I mean, the Detroit is technically the final wild card team based on metrics. So I think that they're not too far away record-wise. DVOA hates the Vikings. We'll see if Detroit's able to make some noise to get into that final wildcard spot.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would much rather play the Vikings over again than play the Lions over again, at least in comparison to the teams we're seeing right now, especially even from the Bills' perspective. I mean, the Lions are explosive beyond explosive. So I think I'd almost rather see the Vikings again just for that reason. But enough of them. Let's move on to what we watched this past weekend on Sunday night. Tua and the Dolphins embarrassed on SNF. This was something. If you were not a Dolphins fan and or Emmanuel Acho, you probably enjoyed this from start to finish. And I did thoroughly enjoy what I witnessed. And maybe the Dolphins are stuttering. Do you think there's a chance that this team could, maybe somehow fall out of the postseason? They have 3 divisional matchups coming up. Right, I think they're back to back to back. And it seems like this team is struggling offensively, and it seems like some of their star players are dealing with injury too. So, was this a shock, this game, the way it went? What are you thinking about the Dolphins? And of course, we play them this upcoming week.
We just talked about the Dolphins a lot in our pregame show. And getting to, I do believe for the Dolphins side of things, this is a do or die game in terms of, obviously they'd be out of the division with a loss, sure. Not technically, but they would be 99.9% out. Mm-hmm. And then as well as now they're in real bad shape because they've lost every tiebreaker to all the wild card teams. To LA, aforementioned, they lost the wild card to Cincinnati. If they're still there, if they don't win the division from the Ravens, they've lost to the Jets. And the Patriots have a chance to get them too. So they're in trouble with a loss. So they need to win to make the playoffs more or less. Now they're still past with a loss for them to go, obviously, but I do think that they're in big trouble. They get the Packers, should be a gimme, but the Packers still have the talent to win football games. And then they have like you said, the other 2 division games. I do think there's a chance that win and in game that might be flexed, Dolphins Jets, could be a game for the playoffs at the end of the year. Sure. There's a chance that they take care of business, Miami, even losing to the Bills, Miami, and New England, and are, I would believe, pretty close to taking care of both of those games. Right. But the tiebreaker situation does not help them. Actually, one of the only teams in the AFC, depending on how the New England game goes, that they have the tiebreaker over is the Bills. So no matter any scenario, the teams are tied. The Dolphins would have the tiebreaker over the Bills in any of tiebreaker scenarios. Obviously, if they win this week, they would have the head-to-head because they won twice. If the Bills drop a division game, they'd have the division tiebreaker, and then they also have the common opponents tiebreaker over the Bills if they finish tied. So it is a situation the Bills need to stay away from. They don't need to be anywhere near that. The Dolphins do not need to jump the Bills. They just need to equal them out, and that does take a little bit of pressure off of them. However, a loss this weekend for the Dolphins completely ends any of that talk. But a win, then at that point, obviously, they'd have the head-to-head. They only needed to make up a game. And with the Bills-Bengals game, that's what they'd be pointing to for the chance to only take care of the Packers and take care of the Patriots to be back in first going into the last week of the year. They take that. So it is a huge swing game, obviously, duh. But really, it really is. And Tua is 0-4 in temperatures under 40 degrees. He's never won. So I can't ever pick against a team that is playing a quarterback who's never won in a certain circumstance. So there's always first times for everything, but with a banged up Tyreek Hill, a banged up Jeff Wilson, a banged up offensive line, a banged up offense that looked pretty poor in the game that we're talking about here. The Dolphins are in trouble, and they need to get right against the Bills in situation where they haven't won in general in Buffalo very much lately. They've lost a majority of their games up here in recent Sean McDermott era. They're in deep trouble, and then under 40 degrees, the cold weather, the situation of the Bills being able to put a stomping down, Josh Allen revenge game. There's a lot working against games, and they have to travel in 6 days. There's a lot working against. Beside losing by 2 points last time, the Bills have dominated the Dolphins in this modern rivalry.
Yeah, we do. We have Miami's number for the most part. It was, unfortunate circumstances that might have changed that narrative a little bit the last time we played them. But this time around, it feels the complete opposite. And you touched on, pretty much every point when it comes to this game. And I guess it almost feels, at least if you're talking from a Miami perspective, it almost feels like you're, all of these things piled on top of the fact that now your whole offensive scheme, at least over the last 2 games, has seemingly been figured out. I mean, you have a roster of complete backups in the Chargers on defense for the most part, of course. Locking up what's supposed to be the fastest wide receiver duo in football, Tua, who's been the highest rated quarterback in football. I mean, this has been an offense that's been beyond explosive. And aside from a fluke touchdown and a fumble return and Tyreek Hill Tyreek Hill scoring because his defensive back fell down, they were a Tua Tagovailoa game of 95 yards away from being extremely embarrassed. So this is definitely feeling like things are really starting to stack up against this team. And this is going to be a true test for not only Tua, Tyreek, and the rest of that cast. It's going to be a true test for Mike McDaniel. I feel like he's been tested so far in his first year, but now he's really going to have to make some adjustments going into the biggest game of their season. So this will be a true test for the rookie head coach.
And you saw Michael Davis take care of this great Dolphins receiving core, a college free agent a few years ago. So press man's the way to beat them. Get up in their face, play them hard, get them off their line, press man, funnel it to the middle where Tua likes to throw, where he throws the most in the NFL, and have safety covered right there. It is a blueprint, right? It's a blueprint, even a little bit easier than, the blueprint of get Tom Brady to the ground. Well, that's easier said than done. Right. Getting Tom Brady to the ground. But press man isn't as hard to do. And funneling things in the middle with an elite linebacking core. Right. And a pretty good, even without Micah Hyde, we'll call Poyer and Hamlin pretty good, funneling everything to the middle, like you saw both the 49ers and the Chargers do. It's going to be a long day for Tua, who can't, especially in the wind elements, can he make those outbreaking throws across the field? He hasn't shown the ability to yet. Yep. Will the Bills play Kyer Elam in this game in a real press man corner, or will they go with a more safe zone breaking Dane Jackson, which may be a mistake? Will you see him? Yeah. But you also did see Trey White out against this game. You saw, a majority. You saw Jordan Poyer out. You saw a majority of the Bills defense, out in the first matchup, and they still found a scheme to work. They've always done fairly well against Tua, even with backups in the game. So feeling pretty good. A lot working against them. And if anything that goes the Dolphins' way, it's that so much isn't going their way, would be the thing that scares me the most.
Right, exactly. So yeah, this is definitely looking to be a game where, and even for our sake, more and more of a must-win for these reasons as well. As much as this is a game that's stacking up against them, it only makes this game that much more of a must-win for us. So definitely going to be a fun one Saturday night.
Yep.
And speaking on the Bills, do a little bit more talking. I'm sure you've broken all of this down so much, so I don't want to kill the horse anymore. But the Bills' 10th win against the Jets was ugly. What were your initial reactions to this game? As the fourth quarter kind of wound down, how were you feeling?
I mean, they were up double digits. They're in a situation to where up 13. They were making them fumble. They were playing pretty sound, letting a few extra third down conversions you would have liked to not see from the defense. They weren't converting themselves on offense. So combo there that was frustrating, but they were really playing pretty sound football. The defensive line got after it. They were absolutely annihilating Mike White, destroying the line of scrimmage. Outside of a few Bam Knight runs, they were playing really good run defense, and they really tightened up the run defense a lot since the first time these teams played. One of the best DVOA run defenses in the league, believe it or not. So a lot to really enjoy about it, but you flip to the offensive side of the ball now, and it was a rough game, but it was rain sleet. I mean, 10 punts, the most in 6 years in a row. It's just a situation to where I don't know who plays well in that. I really don't. And the Bills weathered it. They kind of started to dry up and become more snow-like for the Bills, who are able to go down and score a touchdown in that situation against the Jets that really set it off. And once they scored that, you kind of felt good, Mojo. Yeah. For the most part, there was a few hairy moments in the game, but I don't believe, especially once Mike White got hurt, I don't know if you thought he could stand in there and make throws, and he really could. And he, incompleted 4 straight to lose the game. So he probably shouldn't have been back in the game. But it was important to them. It was a semi-swing game, not a make or break, but a semi-swing game for the Jets, of at least pushing it in a situation where you may not push it in a different scenario, maybe earlier in the year. But I think they saw Joe Flacco take a snap and were like, the game's over if we put him in. Yep. So if he's cleared, we'll put him back in. It's ugly. It's a division game, though. The Jets have always historically played the Bills well in the McDermott era. So back, conversely to the other point about the Dolphins, they've actually played pretty well, and defensively do get after the Bills at times. Robert Saleh has figured out Josh a little bit compared to the one game against San Francisco where he didn't know who Josh Allen was. I still have that soundbite from his last defensive coordinator season there. So he does have an impressive game plan. I don't know that when Josh is right in situations where it's going to continue to work. I do think the rain, sleet, wind helped the Jets a lot in this situation, whereas the snow is not going to help the Dolphins.
Yep, I'm right there with you. It was a tough. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of wins that you can consider ugly, but they're wins, against pretty good teams when we're not playing our best. And I guess even when it seems like things are at the worst, what we all have to sit back and realize is we are 10-3 playing debatably our worst football. I would say, it's gotten to a point where you're like, oh my God, what is happening with this football team? Yet we're still churning out victories. So it's something we always got to keep in the back of our minds. That despite
went 4-1 in the Josh Allen injury stretch, they went 2-4 in this stretch last year. A lot of people forget 7-6 at the same point, playing just as ugly. The Tampa game got a little better offense. They played ugly defense in that game though. They weren't stopping Brady at all. But offensively, it did look a little bit better in that Bucs game. But for the most part, the stretch in November into early December was really ugly before the Bills then won their 4 straight. They got 4 straight in a situation where they don't look very good. They lost this game last year just to the Colts in the rain sleet of the run game of the Colts. They lost in the years past with the Eagles. So it's a situation where you're not winning it. I'm feeling pretty good that the only way this team's lost, most notably, is a Josh Allen arm injury to end the game and a Justin Jefferson miracle catch we've already talked about, and a bunch. So I'm feeling pretty good that those are the only 2 losses that the team's had in 10 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. And I really thought, as much as this game might not have been too impressive, and at some points I was really getting frustrated. I just look back at the stretch between Cleveland and Detroit. I mean, those were 2 physical victories, and considering the circumstances with getting the team to Ford Field twice, being injured. I mean, I think we always kind of forget about the external factors that play into what goes onto the field and the product we get. I think just watching it, we get so caught up in what's happening that we kind of forget all of the outside factors that play into the product. So, we got to give this team a lot of credit for what they fought through. And as much as negative as some people could get, as bleak as some things could be at some points, we still have a lot to hang our hats on. So
I think you can get negative about certain situations or certain scripts or certain things, but to be negative in general, like saying like on my mentions, I've had people say this team's not good. It's just as bad. It's worse than ever. They're way worse in every category last year. I don't know what you think you are. You're thinking of the playoffs only. Let's be honest. You're not thinking of how the regular season was going in November. You're not. because the team was not very good in stretches last year. And Daboll struggled mightily fighting with McDermott at times.
Yeah.
So, Dorsey will figure it out. We're not putting everything on tape. The Dolphins threw everything out the Bills in the first matchup. The Jets did too. Fake punts. We saw a bunch of scenarios, them running certain schemes, them outside zone, gap runs. I mean, things the Bills will be ready for now because they put everything on tape. The Bills didn't. So that's another scheme thing that'll help the Bills, obviously, when it comes to playing the Dolphins. But it helped them against the Jets too. They stopped their run game. That was what mattered. The reason that wasn't going, they had a few breakout runs later in the game, but especially when the Bills were playing softer. But early on in the game, they had nothing going for them, and that made me feel good. That when I see the defense playing pretty good, I can take some offensive wars. So ultimately, all in all, sum up this by saying, I can't hate on them for being 10-3. Would like the offensive numbers to be a little gaudier. Josh is still number 4 in MVP voting. So like there is a situation to sure he was coming in and was on a stretch to be 1. I would like to see that gap a little bit shorter than all the way up to the top. You saw Patrick Mahomes up there and Hurts up there as well. So I'd like to see that shorter, but ultimately they played pretty good. And Dorsey's had some struggles. He's been pretty vanilla. So we'll see if any of that changes here as early as Miami or going forward to Chicago and Cincinnati.
Yeah, and speaking right on that point of Ken Dorsey and, what we're going to see from him, because we do have new faces in this building. The Bills signed Cole Beasley, been the talk of the town. The Cowboys signed T.Y. Hilton, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to touch on the OBJ sweepstakes real quick. Was this all a hoax? Was this something that people were, jumping the gun on? What do you think has happened with this entire situation, to lead up to
No,
this?
I don't think it was a hoax because it doesn't help the player. So if the player's going to his top destinations, the Giants, Bills, and the Cowboys, turning down other meetings with, I believe, the Ravens and the Chiefs, it doesn't look good. You're trying to get paid. This isn't like, you're selling a used car. You're trying to sell yourself in a situation where you're trying to get paid. The hoax doesn't help you. It hurts you. So anything else, say I put everything else aside, it does not help you to go into to visits when you're not thinking of a time frame that you're ready to play in. I don't know that as much as we know Hilton has been good and Beasley's been good too. I don't know that at this stage of either of their careers, they're game-changing players that take away the ability if OBJ is ready to make a decision on saying he thinks the Bills are where he wants to be. I don't believe the Bills will turn him down at this stage and say no. I think that they would have a good problem on their hands now. Yes, you wouldn't see John Brown again, but I do think you would still probably see OBJ and Cole Beasley late in the year and into the playoffs. Same with the Cowboys. And I don't think the Giants are serious. They're not going to really finish out the season. So I can't take them seriously to signing him this year. But I do think that both of the teams said they were both engaging in OBJ still. And both of these guys can help literally this week, not even in 4 weeks. They're thinking literally in their matchups. Hilton's going to suit up, and by all accounts, Beasley's going to suit up. They can help in their matchups this week. And OBJ wasn't going to whether he picked the Bills or the Cowboys. And honestly, by him not signing already saves the team money against the cap. So it's good scenarios to where if he comes to the Bills in week 16, week 17, and says he's finally ready to play and he chooses the Bills, they work out the numbers, he's signing. I don't believe it was a hoax. I do think you still see him on a team this year. And he's still vying for saying, hey, I'm going to play the playoffs for you. I am. Yeah. But then I want to be able your team's number 1 or 2 receiver next year. And I think all that will work itself out. Here's next year's deal. I'm going to give you the playoffs this year as a bonus. But am I going to give you the Dolphins game or the Bears game? I might, no, that's not in the cards. But Beasley is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think, at least I saw some initial reactions to the Cowboys signing T.Y. Hilton, that took them right out of the OBJ sweepstakes. Same thing with the Bills to some extent. I don't think this affects any of that. It's just a matter of OBJ not being ready and these two teams feeling like they need some insurance. But I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit on the opposite side of the spectrum with this whole situation as far as OBJ goes. I do feel like not maybe hoax was the wrong word. I do think he probably jumped the gun in terms of where he thought his recovery was. I mean, I think at least from Jerry Jones's, bulging pockets, he would have just went and, spent as much money as he wanted to on a guy he felt was ready. But if he didn't, he truly comes out and says he's not ready. And I think by now we would have known if that was a smokescreen or not, that they didn't feel interested, at least at this point. So with that being said, I think OBJ probably thought he would be ready by now, and now he's not. And he was probably, I guess this is just my outside perspective talking, but maybe the Cowboys were even shocked, like, oh, wait, this guy isn't quite where he thinks he is right now. So what are we going to do right now? And that's why they brought in T.Y. Hilton.
I think with the Cowboys, they will spend money, but they spend it smartly and they take a limited risk. They took them forever to sign Dak Prescott. It did not take the Bills very long to decide they wanted to pay Josh Allen.
Yeah.
They do spend money. They didn't want to go up there on Vaughn, who's a guy that could have changed, really been a really key cog defensive line presence with Micah Parsons. Bowed out of that. He will spend money, but he isn't quite empty pocket or totally, throwing out money bags left and right like he could have been. They traded Cooper because of money in a situation. The reason they're in this sweepstakes.
Yeah, right.
So he's releasing that, I think, to protect himself if the Giants or the Bills make a sizable offer. He doesn't want to come down and look cheap. He needs to have a quick and easy out. And in fairness, it's mid-December, though. The one thing I will say about OBJ is, like, teams are thinking about this week or next week. Sorry, dude. Like, they're not thinking about the playoffs. They're not there yet. And Dorsey even sensed that in his press conferences. Like, but I do believe once they get closer and the seeding starts to work itself out, I do think that the OBJ stuff is going to seemingly increase again, probably a final round of where he actually goes, because then he probably is more ready to play and suit up in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I just really wonder where I think, where OBJ's head might be at. Maybe right now, maybe he was going into looking for that long-term deal like we were talking about, but maybe now realizing that, maybe he's not, as of this point, at least, this hot commodity. Maybe now he will take that deal where he's just finishing out the season. And it's just kind of like a Ram repeat. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But I did want to touch on the Bills specifically signing Beasley real quick. I heard you and Mike breaking it down at the tail end there. But, I think there's two hurdles, if you will, when it comes to Beasley making an impact. And that would be him breaking the mold of retirement. He's not been out for very long. He was with the Bucs not too long ago. But still, he hasn't played in a bit. I would assume he's keeping himself in some sort of shape. But still a guy that's not exactly up to speed. So you got to break through that. But the other part is, are we trusting Dorsey to necessarily work him in the same exact way he was worked in with when Brian Daboll was here? I think Dorsey has done a fine job at points, but at other times, I heard you allude to it a little bit too. You would like to see things done a little bit different with the way this offense is run. And I think Cole Beasley, the idea is a very good one, but the assumption that he's going to hurdle both of these obstacles and make this impact where, like we saw in the postseason last year, I think that's a little bit of an assumption that is bold right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, think about the risk factor, right? We were just kind of talking about that with Jerry Jones, and the risk factor for the Bills is $250,000. It's not much.
It's nothing.
That's about his monthly pay. And everyone, I've seen some tweets already about like, oh, he's only here to collect a game check. No, he's not going to miss Christmas. He's a wealthy guy. A little bit at the Cowboys, the Bills paid him fairly well. He had $6 million. The reason he was cut in the first place was his cap hit. And he made a good amount of guaranteed money. Not the richest player to ever play the sport, but has plenty of money to where he doesn't need $250K to miss the holidays in cold Buffalo when he's from Texas. It's not a situation to where he's just collecting a game check. The Bills didn't give him a $50 million deal. Okay, fine, I'll come out of retirement. This is a situation of minimum paychecks in a cold weather environment, uprooting your family during the holiday season. He wants to play football, and that's good. Those are good things. And we had the report too last night. He was sitting on the airplane next to someone that we were in contact with, looking at third down plays. The person noticed him looking at third down plays, looking at third down schemes. Notably mentioned the game against the Jets. So he's looking at film, presumably against the Bills Jets on his way to Buffalo. Didn't have the playbook in his hands per what I've heard, but was looking at that. And I do think with Dorsey in the building before him, working in his continuity with Allen and even Diggs will help a ton. And he doesn't need to do much. He's not going to be asked to run exquisite routes in certain situations. He's going to be Josh's security blanket and be an out, really be what they were expecting OJ Howard to be, or a second tight end. They don't have it, right? They don't really have that second tight end. Dawson Knox, does his thing, but they need another safety valve in this offense. And it's going to go to Cole Beasley on third and short, and third and situations, and third and mediums, to where you can't cover everybody. And that might open up more of Gabriel Davis. Yeah. So all in all, Are you going to look for 30 catches total for the end of the year? No, but you're going to be in a situation to where he played pretty good at the end of last year. The 14 or so snaps or whatever it was for the Bucs, that didn't feel right, but that should show you that like he does feel something in this Bills offense, in this community, that he felt like this was a better match than what the Bucs asked him to do. And at that stage, the Bills may not have called him. So I do think that this is an interesting scenario. I do expect to see more of him than I do John Brown or others that are your typical practice squad players.
Yeah, and actually, Roy just made a comment that I didn't even think about. What do you think this, said a lot about Jamison Crowder and where he's at in his recovery? I mean, it's probably safe to believe that, Jamison isn't maybe as close as they were hoping he'd be at this point. So Cole Beasley's another name they could bring in to.
He broke his upper ankle, lower leg. I mean,
I'm surprised there was even a chance he'd come back.
It's like Micah Hyde a little bit, where I guess they're a little upset by that, but no, it's the same. This topic's literally similar to OBJ. It really is, in the way of like, dude can't help us right now. Like we have to get Cole. He has continuity. What I've heard from the players within the team that he that they come to him, Cole, and said, hey, call up our management and say that you're into this. And he did, by what we've heard. It was a situation to where the players on the team felt like he could add something that they were missing. And we can't just rely on OBJ or Jamison Crowder to be back anytime soon. They need to secure the 1 seed, 2 seed, hopefully the 1, but a high seed before they worry about these players that aren't going to be healthy until that game happens. So realistically, they need him for 4 weeks, right? And 3 weeks on the practice squad, and then they're going to have to make a decision to call him up for a week to the active roster, or wait to the playoffs when the call-ups reset. So they have a decision to make. John Brown can only be called up once more. I don't envision seeing John Brown and Cole Beasley at the same time. There's just not enough snaps there, but things can happen where they call both of them up and maybe scratch somebody on your current roster. So ultimately, Bills signing Beasley is a good move. $250,000 risk. If he comes in and is absolutely nothing about what we're talking about here today, no risk. And all you can do is give him credit for trying to bring the band back together. He is a veteran leadership, as much as we don't think of this side. Team loves him. Look at all the comments after he signed by the team, the players inside the locker room. He's there to battle for the next 6+ weeks with the team. So if he's not amazing, fine. But if he's able to give 57 yards and a touchdown, you're feeling pretty good about the signing.
Definitely. And, you spoke on the leadership portion. I mean, there really was no figure in this locker room to Cole Beasley's measure for a guy like Khalil Shakir, who, maybe eventually becomes this role for us. He serves this role. Understandably, he's proven to have a tool belt large enough to potentially be a boundary receiver. But, in terms of being the guy on the inside, this is somebody that, could probably use this type of presence in the locker room. So I think that could be big in that sense too. And we've seen what Von Miller has done, assumingly, of course, for guys like Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. So another huge benefit to this.
You would think he would help Khalil Shakir develop. Isaiah McKenzie's kind of out of that stage of his career, but you would expect like a Khalil Shakir to learn from him and be a big presence there, and maybe present himself to be somebody that a team's not scheming for. Like, you're not going to scheme, even though you know who Cole Beasley is. The Dolphins aren't going to scheme for Colby. I mean, they're just not. Yeah. So if he's able to do maybe the Bears would have to, but the Dolphins aren't. So if you're able to do anything with him, and I'm assuming the Bears wouldn't either, you're going to be able to catch teams off guard. I mean, they're worrying about Allen. They're worrying about Diggs. They're worrying about potentially the running game, maybe even Knox, Davis a little bit over the top. They're not going to think of a washed up Cole Beasley. So if he has anything, he's going to see the worst coverage on the entire field. So if he has anything left, it's going to be highlighted because of the situation that I believe the Bills offense can put him in. And he's really good in Josh's scramble drills, really good against Casey. The reason that 13 seconds happened was because it wasn't Stephon Diggs. It was Cole Beasley and Gabriel Davis.
Yep, totally. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how this unfolds, but the low risk, huge reward factor of it is
$250K
is the biggest benefit, right? All right, so we'll move on. And we covered a lot of ground there already, but we still got more to go. I'm going to get away from the Bills a little bit. We're going to get into the Over the Flyer segment. Basically, Over the Flyer works this way. I'm going to present Kevin with a team player scenario topic. He's going to tell me if said thing is cooked or if said thing is uncooked. Cooked means they're done, screwed, no chance. Uncooked means there's still time, something can change, yada, yada, yada.
All right,
so
let's get into it.
The first over-the-fire candidate I have is the 49ers Super Bowl hopes. This might be odd because we saw what they did this weekend, but at the same time, they have Brock Purdy under center. And at some point, we saw it bite them in the ass with Jimmy Garoppolo. There has to be some point along the road where it bites them with Brock Purdy. What are you thinking here?
Cooked. I just ultimately feel like Deebo Samuel's out. So that's a big loss.
Yep. You're
already kind of seeing them work Christian McCaffrey a ton. Elijah Mitchell's out. They're starting to run low on weapons, and now their third quarterback's hurt to where they're talking about Josh Johnson. It's going to run out for them. They're the pivotal example of quarterback wins don't matter. I am a quarterback wins guy. I think it does matter. But the 49ers always counter me and say, nah, we still win with regardless of, they weren't running with Trey Lance though, but regardless of Jimmy G or Brock Purdy. But that's about a hurt Brock Purdy to me. I was going to potentially look at who they're playing the rest of the season and maybe get some bets in, but I don't feel they're real Super Bowl contenders, but they are someone that built the way they are could have some hopes next year. Really, they are a team that's right there. I think they're going to get got in the playoffs and against a team finally that's pretty good. Whether it be, it doesn't really matter. Eagles, it could be Dallas. I just don't know, how they're going to compete in these situations. The NFC's weak, but cooked.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. It's just the defense. This is a league so predicated on offense and scoring points nowadays that the defense is only going to be able to do so much.
Right.
Brock Purdy looked okay, serviceable this weekend, sure, but even on some of his best plays, I think Brandon Ayuk, one of his better throws, if you will, was that Brandon Ayuk wide open touchdown. But Brandon Ayuk did 95% of the lifting there. He ran a beautiful route to the sideline. Yeah, and even the throw was bad. The throw was not great. It was, a nice play, but the throw it looked underthrown. It was just Brandon Ayuk was so open, that it ended up working out. But yeah, I think I have to agree. Cooked for sure. The 49ers, they're going to need a miracle and a half if they want to make it to the big game. But with that being said, we kind of touched on this already, but how about the Jets playoff hopes? Are they cooked or uncooked?
I think they're uncooked. I think this game means a lot to them, the Bills, the Bills Dolphins. I don't know that you're rooting for, I think you're giving up the division now if you're the Jets. And you want to say who's leading it now. It could be the Bills or the Patriots. It doesn't really matter who's in charge. It is the Bills in this case. And you need them to win out. You want them to beat the rest of the division teams for you. And I think that their hopes are that they have a tiebreaker over the Dolphins at the end of the year. And I think it's uncooked as of right now. I need to see one more week. They're seemingly in a good game against two teams that are currently uncooked. But both a loss by Detroit or the Jets, it's about over for either. Definitely over for the Detroit. Really, really close to being over for the Jets if they do drop it.
Oh yeah, and they're going to need Mike White healthy.
It's a minor playoff game. It's a mini light playoff game for these teams because the loser is basically out. Detroit's out for sure. So I think you see the best of Detroit, and I'm interested in this game. And I'm not 100% sure. I'm definitely rooting for the Jets. Or the Lions. I don't know that. I don't know if you'd rather see the Jets in one of those lower wild card spots. You're rooting for the Jets.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a very fair perspective. We have a couple of differing opinions. King Mikey says he thinks the Jets are done. Roy says they're uncooked. Jets have a legit shot. I think it all rides on the health of Mike White. If he's able to play to his full potential, then, the Jets, I think, are one of the scarier teams in the AFC.
That defense is good.
Top 5 defense, right? This defense has been ferocious. You got DPI, Mr. Sauce Gardner. I'm not going to go that far. He's been excellent. But
defense travels, man. Defense travels.
Yes, and it's one of those cases where the defense has been so good to that they were winning with Zach Wilson under center, and all Zach Wilson had to do was not throw the game, and he did that enough already. So that you're bringing a guy that all he had to do was not throw the game, and Mike White's been exceptional. So we've seen how dangerous this team is.
So maybe you're rooting for the Lions. Then you're rooting for the Lions, I guess.
Right. Yeah. I honestly, I guess I'm almost indifferent, to be honest. I think I'll be rooting for a high scoring, fun football game. I think that's probably what
that's
I'll be
fair.
rooting for. But another side note, quick question. This is unrelated, but I do want to ask you, do you think Mike White, if Zach Wilson's the starter in New York next year. Is Mike White remaining the backup in New York, or is Mike White, potentially looking to be a starter at some point and, moving on to be a starter?
I'll admit I'm not. I love his toughness. I am not a Mike White guy. I don't think he's particularly very good. His toughness showed me some stuff. I'll give him that. I don't think he played fairly well against a bad Vikings defense, at least secondary. I don't think he's particularly very good. The Bills kind of exposed him. The first time they played him last year, he didn't play very well on Sunday. And had he played a little bit better, that it would have been a way closer game. I don't buy him but he's probably has a chance to be like a really 1B somewhere. Marcus Mariota, got almost a whole season. So, Geno Smith got an entire season and played well. So I'm not a Mike White guy personally. The toughness showed me something. I like that. I didn't want to see him wincing on the ground after that hit. That was not something I liked seeing. But ultimately, though, as the player, I'm not a Mike White guy.
Okay, fair enough. I think it probably is a little bit premature for me to jump on the bandwagon, but I'm starting to think Mike White has it. We're looking at the starters across the NFL right now, and like you said, Marcus Mariota got damn near a whole season. We're looking at a landscape of quarterbacks that don't have secure positions. Mac Jones, granted, I think he is a little bit better than the situation he's been put into, but he was battling to some capacity, not really, but that Bailey Zappi situation. I think Mac Jones is probably the last starting quarterback before I would really start to say, okay, Mike White maybe could be doing a better job, if that makes sense, than the other guys. I think if you put Mike White on the 49ers right now, things would look pretty dark for the rest of the NFC. That's just me. Yeah, Mike White is it's just, I feel like he's done enough with the Jets offense that was very run heavy to begin with. They were leaning on Breece Hall, and that's how they were winning football games in combination with that defense. And now that Breece Hall went down, they really haven't been able to supplement the run game nearly as much. But Donovan White, Bam Bam's done well. But I think Mike White's elevated that offense to a level where they didn't even have to be at to be winning football games. So I've been liking Mike White's game, and he can easily come out and throw 4 picks, next week like he did last year.
A claimed quarterback and a UDFA running back, and a first-round top-flight receiver. It's an interesting combo.
It is.
But it's a weak offensive line. These are all reasons the Jets could be cooked. But at the same time, Mike White has shown something. He has shown to beat bad teams. Yep. He has been able to show that. And this is a big game. This is not a great Detroit team, but it's a good one, and it's playing good. It's a game that the Jets should win, honestly, in my opinion. The defense should shut down that hot offense. And they should be able to do enough to beat the Detroit defense. If they don't, though, I think that cooks them, as well as might put a nail in Mike White. But he'll get the majority of the season probably until they're out.
Yeah, I think so too. You make a good point. I think this game is not only huge for the Jets, but for Mike White. This is you have to.
He's got to beat Detroit.
Yeah, you got to score to beat Detroit. This is your chance to prove, if in the scenario that the Jets defense struggles, which I don't see, but Mike White, you got to be efficient. You got to score. If you can do it, then maybe you can make a name for yourself. So you make a fair point there. And the last cooked or uncooked candidate I want to touch on is Deshaun Watson. Is he cooked? Is this guy? I didn't expect him to step in and play like what we saw in 2019, but. You play against your former team, your first week back. And there was like one play where I'm like, wow, this guy might actually still be decent. Otherwise, it's been like not good. Jacoby Brissett, in my opinion, was doing an exceptional job this year. And Deshaun Watson, comes out and he makes the Browns offense substantially worse. Worse than what I thought they would end up looking like. And the signs pointing forward have not been, been there. Do you think Deshaun Watson still has what it takes to be what they paid him to be?
I think he's uncooked. I still have visions of him being good. Yeah. I think it's his preseason for him. Like he wasn't able to practice till the Bills week. And he was playing Josh Allen on the scout team. I'm gonna say uncooked, but worried. And I want to see by the end of the year. And this is another big game for them. They're favored against in this game against, whatever quarterback is going to trot out there in their NFC North battle.
Yeah.
So, or AFC North battle. So I don't even know who's healthy there. So this is a big game for him to show that, like, we're favored. We're supposed to win this. The season's probably over for them still anyways. But they need to show that, like, we can beat our division opponents, and I'm back. You started to see it a little bit late in the game, finally. Yeah. But this is pretty big. And they need to give him these games. Like, they need to get him ramped up, ready, used to game speed again, and have him full speed for next year. And I agree. I think you need to see at least the end of this year, and then maybe I answer this question differently.
Right.
But by week 1 next year, I'll feel pretty good about the answer to that question. But he's got a lot of talent. If his head's still in it, if he still got it, he is a top 7 quarterback, top 4 at times. So we'll see, but he's not playing that right now. He's playing 25th ranked quarterback right now.
Oh yeah. He made one, I do take my original comment back. He made one throw to Donovan Peoples-Jones when he was getting sacked. That was absurd. So that
reminds you. Yep.
That was the first time that I was like, granted he hasn't seen a lot of snaps yet, but that was the first play so far where I was like, wow, that looked like what Deshaun Watson is supposed to look like. And then I think he threw a pick like 2 plays later.
Don't forget about the Ravens, Saints, Commanders, Steelers run. I mean, it's really not saying much. They could be 9-8. Like, I'm assuming they're going to lose some of those, but they could be 9-8 and semi in the conversation a little bit.
I thought that, when of course they had to make the decision to bring him in. You don't pay the guy, trade for him, do all this shit to not play him when he returned. But I think to some rate that if they end up dropping a game or two that maybe they shouldn't because of Deshaun Watson's poor play down the stretch here, that we could be looking back and saying, wow, the Browns maybe could have been a playoff team if they left Jacoby Brissett in the way he was dealing. I mean, he developed one hell of a rapport with Amari Cooper, with Donovan Peoples-Jones, with David Njoku. I thought Brissett exceeded expectations, and it's been really the defense of that team that has let them down. I mean, tremendously. It's not been healthy, at some points, but
it's not a good defense.
And it's also just a bad defensive front. The defensive front in general, outside of Myles Garrett, it really has not been.
And the Bills dominated that game. Jacoby Brissett made it a game. The Bills are sitting in a soft nickel. But that team's not super good. The Bills, when you shut down Chubb, the teams are starting to do a little bit, and is a very vulnerable team. And you're thinking that Watson can help you take the next step. I need to see, like, they should be able to compete against maybe the third quarterback of the Ravens. I don't, or a hurt Huntley.
Right. We'll see who ends up trotting out, like you mentioned. But all right. On that note, we'll move into our next segment, which is just a basic Q&A. I have a couple questions that I want to ask you before we move into the underdog of the week. And the first question is going to be this: is there a legit concern to be had with the Bills offense? We know the huge debacle this weekend with Jerry, and then, everything else that happened with Jerry, and, he's gotten his rightful treatment up to this point. But staying on track here, do you think this offense does have room to be, there is room for concern with the way that they've been performing as of late?
I don't personally think so. However, I am not upset to ask that question. I don't think you should be that. I personally think that they'll figure it out. They're doing things every day to look better. They look better against the Patriots, then ran into the rain sleet. So I can't say it's so bad. I thought Josh Allen played pretty fine in that game for the most part. No turnovers, which was huge. The team won the game. He didn't turn the ball. He hasn't turned the ball over lately. Patrick Mahomes now has similar interception problem. I feel really good about them with the ball in their hands, and they've done it all season under 2 minutes because it keeps the defense on their toes. They can't script up against Josh Allen like they're able to do with a full play clock. And that's been the problem, is they've been vanilla, and teams have dictated what the Bills offense is going to do and make Josh make a play where he's throwing away from his body against 3 Patriots defensive backs and makes a great play. I mean, that's been Josh. And at some point when you're in 2 minutes, the defense can't do that. And that's why the Bills have been the best team in the league. So that's what makes you happy. They're the best team in the league in these gotta have it situations. And that's why that Jets game, I can't just give that an auto L, but he got hurt. They converted early on in that drive against the Jets the first time and got a pretty bad holding call that you didn't call all game. The guy, Dawkins took him to the ground, was not a holding. It really wasn't. And then the injury happened, off script, game over, and still threw a dime to Gabriel Davis with a hurt UCL. Those are the end of the game situations to where the teams were really, and that was the worst one. And the teams were really good at that situation all season long. They were good against the Vikings. They came back and tied it. They came back and should have won it, honestly. And in the Dolphins, they couldn't get out of bounds. Diggs is on his knees. He can't get off the field. So really in every single game, the Chiefs, they got it done. They got it done against the Lions. In every single situation, the Bills have been really good. The Patriots at the end of the half, they've been really, really, and they were good against the end of the half against the Jets. Really, really good. So I'm not concerned with the Bills offense. I do think there's possibility you can mention the scheme being a problem. Coming out of Allen's a little strange. He's not the issue.
Yeah.
You can say he's had some bad interceptions. He has. He's been hurt too. The Jets interception was actually the worst one after he hit Diggs on a dime. Then he threw it right to Whitehead. That was bad. He just didn't see him. Outside of a couple of those, though, it's not his fault. The Patrick Peterson one in the end zone is not his fault. The scheme didn't drag Peterson off that route. That's a touchdown. That ball makes it there to Gabe Davis to win the game. Not to mention the play before was pass interference on Dawson Knox that they didn't call, which they did call on Justin Jefferson the series before. Same down the sideline, same play. So what's interesting about that, though, is dime, that's a touchdown. The drag route did not take, there was no one there to take Patrick Peterson off that route because of tendencies. There's 3 receivers 10 yards apart. It was a bad scheme play, but that is where you want him to throw the ball. That he's perfect on post routes to Gabe Davis. Yeah, it's where they won
bread and butter.
It's how they beat the Chiefs every time they play him, and should have offensively beat them in the playoff game. Mm-hmm. That's what you need to do. That's a perfect throw. Patrick Peterson jumped the route knowing that the Bills are good at it. And there was no one to drag him off, because if there's someone to drag him off, then you hit the player right in front of Patrick Peterson for either a touchdown or the ball in the 3. So bad scheme for a play that you're really good at. So I am not concerned overall. I think that with losing Dable, it's a little bit of a concern, but Josh got to handpick Dorsey. Dorsey gives him flexibility, lets him play vanilla to be himself. And at times that's been a challenge. So then he's saying, like, look, he went to him and said, I need to see if John Brown can bring anything down the field for us, because we're struggling down the field a little bit. And I need Cole because we're struggling short. So we'll see. Each game plan might be a little bit different. But right now, I'm feeling pretty good. You want Josh to make those throws. He's got some red zone interceptions that he hasn't had throughout his career. It's not like he does it every single season. Mm-hmm. He had a bad stretch of this. In a lot of times where he makes that play. So some of them were bad. The Jets one was particularly really bad. And some of them look worse because of the scheme. The one against the Lions was tipped. Really good defensive play.
That was an insane play.
It's a play they have with Diggs all the time.
Yeah, that was a crazy play. I mean, some of these interceptions have been, I think that Lions one, people were just so fed up with the red zone interceptions that are just another one. It's just like the linebacker just made it absolutely.
The first linebacker made a play, and then the intercepting linebacker made a play. So you have Alex Anzalone. I mean, you just had a really, you had Enrico. You had a really good situation with Malcolm Rodriguez. So I mean, like, they made a really good play on that one. The Jets one was egregious. That was a bad play. It's fine. Like, that shouldn't be a big deal. And the Patrick Peterson one was a pure scheme issue. That can be broken down by anybody that watches film, that there was no one to take off Patrick Peterson, not a Josh Allen bad throw. It looked like it was right to him. That player should not be there. Patrick Peterson should not be there on that route. It's a gimme touchdown, and so Josh threw it. But Patrick Peterson gambled and guessed that Josh is really good at that. And there was no one there to bait him off. All of the receivers were bundled up right on the other side, left of the field.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think, I agree with you in the sense that this has not been a Josh Allen problem. This has been a Ken Dorsey issue in combination with, I think there's a huge misconception, at least there's become one, at least this year, that the Bills have this stacked offensive cast to surround Josh and Diggs. He doesn't. I mean, I would argue that we have, at least the way things have gone this year, a back half offensive cast outside of Josh and Diggs, the way they've been utilized. And I think that is on Ken Dorsey more so. because I feel like he's not putting guys in situations to be successful. But still, I mean, considering the offensive line play down the stretch here, which has been atrocious, considering the intermittent Dawson Knox sightings, Gabe Davis suddenly becoming pretty much invisible outside of the deep shot. And now that's been pretty much invisible, whether it be due to injury or teams taking it away or what. And
Gabe Davis is a tertiary option right now.
Yeah.
He just is someone that's left open or that makes a play on a scramble like we saw in New England. He's a tertiary option right now.
That seems to be everybody other than Diggs, to be honest. If a player is an oh shit outlet, I like to call him. Dawson Knox has at times been an oh shit outlet. Isaiah McKenzie, sometimes he's the ball in a designed route or two, but most of the time
he's actually been more your secondary option more than we want to admit. He's been really good against Detroit. He's always good against New England because they run man. He's good in these games, and he, by all accounts, look, he had some drops. He threatened or not threatened. He said, why don't you go and catch the football? I'm not paid to catch the football.
I know.
That's not what I'm paid to do, dude. But at the same time, I get his point. Where there were some drops across your number one receiver, which, doesn't drop the ball. He, dropped it. Knox had a pretty bad drop. Singletary had a pretty bad drop. It was a problem all game. And it hasn't been really that huge of a problem this season beside Gabriel Davis. Hasn't really been that big of a problem. Really hasn't across the team. So he has been a secondary option. He beats man coverage.
Yeah, he does.
He just doesn't seem to he just doesn't seem to continue that momentum game to game like he has against New England or Detroit. Doesn't continue it, but the Bills look for him. And that's where that's why I think that Cole Beasley actually gets targets, because these snaps are going to go directly to Beasley, and Beasley's going to make, I believe Beasley's going to make plays. Is he going to go for 7 catches for 110 yards? No. Is he going to sit in the 40 to 60 range, fringing on second option? He could if he still has it. He certainly could. He's going to get the targets.
Yeah, I mean, it's a trust factor too. I think Isaiah McKenzie was slowly gaining traction, and then unfortunately he I think brought himself to a screeching halt this past week, in a sense. But the role that we're looking for, that secondary option, is just a trust. I think it's just a trust role, and we've struggled to find that with some guys this year, and that's been a massive problem. But you make a very fair point. It seems like for the most part, outside of Diggs, it's been McKenzie, the secondary option, where we're looking for him to be the primary shot on a specific play.
Yeah, he has 38 catches on 55 targets. Gabe Davis has 38 catches on 71 targets. He's been super inefficient. He's got the 10 yards average per catch on McKenzie. He's getting fed the ball. I mean, he's fringing on secondary option. I mean, Davis technically per stats is in the secondary option range, but that's because he has 18.3 yards per catch.
Yeah.
So it inflates it, but really they've been as productive as McKenzie. They've been very similar, 6 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. They've been very similar, but Davis has won a few deeper routes and had a few big games. But Knox is actually rising to the level. He's not getting the luck touchdowns that he got in the red zone last year. Maybe some of those went for interceptions. But beside the touchdowns, which sometimes can be a luck factor, just kind of like fumble recoveries in a way based on the scheme, his numbers, his targets, his catches, and his yards are getting to be where they're supposed to be. So he's kind of made up in this new, don't turn the ball over Josh. I think that Knox could end up in indefinitely close to secondary option range.
I honestly thought he would be I think Gabe has kind of fulfilled the role that we were looking him to fulfill to an extent. I think we were hoping that he would kind of carve his game out a little bit more this year and become more than what he seemingly was at the end of last year. And that really hasn't been the case, whether that be his fault or not. But I thought Dawson Knox would be, really taking a step up in terms of volume, for this football team. And I think that's what the hope was, because we kind of didn't make up for the loss of Emmanuel Sanders or Cole Beasley. I think that was the assumption, was Dawson Knox is now going to be, an option to be looked for, primarily, or an option to be looked for as a safety blanket and a trust factor for Josh. And it's just not been that, and like I said, whether that be Josh's fault, Dawson's fault. I mean, whose fault is it? I like to point to the conductor at the front of the train, but it's just been an interesting year. Going back at the original point of the question, I think it's fair to say there's concern for the offense now, while also thinking they can easily turn it around. I think those two are mutually
on a 1 week basis too. This isn't a 70-week thing. 1 week basis, they can turn it around. So I don't mean to take up all the time on number one, though. So I'm sure you got some great Q&As.
Yeah, I do. I'll probably, for the sake of time, I'll stick with the second one because this is a good one too. But will Lamar be a Raven next year? This has only gotten stickier with his injury now. When is he going to return? I mean, this has only gotten that much thicker. What do you think with Lamar?
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah,
I do think he does come back. It's like the Aaron Judge scenario a little bit. If you're a baseball fan, I do. I just don't see him walking. His mom's his agent, if I'm correct. So I think they stay. They'll get to the number. I don't actually realistically see him going to the Seahawks or the Bucks or whomever. Really, the whole NFC. The whole NFC South. So I think he stays. I think they figure out a number. I don't think he really wants to go. He's entrenched in that community. He does so much good there. They love him for them. I think they generally do. Beside the kind of this weird contract thing, like they all love him there. That's like the Yankees letting Judge go. I just don't see it happening at this stage. I don't see the breakup happening. No one that big, like Breeze did leave. He still wasn't as loved. Like he was still, there was still some issues there. But I can't get my head around a breakup.
That's if this past offseason didn't happen the way it did, I would be right there with you. But I mean, I watching everything that unfolded, and I guess, looking back at it, it made sense. Teams were put in tough situations, had to pay guys, couldn't pay guys. Things happen. But just the amount of monumental shift that I feel like we witnessed this offseason, I can't help but think anything is possible at any moment, which leaves the door open for this possibility. And I don't know. I just feel like it's been silly of Baltimore up to this point to really let it drag on this long. I don't know what exactly they're really waiting. I mean, I think Lamar deserved it, to put it simply. I think Lamar matured as a passer. I think despite his numbers being poor, I thought he looked good. I can't see
the Ravens deciding to rebuild. They traded money away to be able to have money to pay him. It doesn't make any. Is there a chance he could walk? Sure. I don't think he does. The Ravens would then be saying, we are not serious as a team. I don't see them saying that to their fans. It's tenfold.
Yeah. And I mean, they did just make a pretty big trade. Was Roquan Smith, is he, what is that going to end up panning out? Like, is that just this year? Is that just a this year contract? What did they take on for Roquan?
They didn't take on too much this year. That was the whole reason they paid like a huge draft pick because they ate a majority of it. So they had to compensate with a draft pick because they're not paying him anything really. And it was the last day that a team could take on that contract and trade and still be able to trade him. So, they're not paying him too much. So we'll see where that plays itself out as a UFA. And his market value is going to be pretty hefty at around $17 million. So,
that'll be a situation that I think.
But yeah, they're only paying him like $500K, but that's why they had to pay the pick.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, right. All right. Anyway, Lamar, we'll see how that unfolds. But I think it's safer to assume he's a Raven. I mean, that would be a pretty drastic change. But we'll move on to the underdog pick of next week for week 15, and we're turning the corner at the season. I can't believe we're almost done. It's pretty crazy to say out loud, but here we are. And with that being said, let's cover our quick underdog picks for this coming week. Do you want to cover yours first?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. The underdog pick of the week is I love Jacksonville at home against Dallas. I think they get it done. I definitely like them with the money, with the points. I think every time you see a team struggle the week prior that barely won, they're vulnerable. You saw it with the Jets, Vikings. The Vikings go and lose to Detroit. Similar situation here. I like Jacksonville with the points, and I do think that they can pull it out money line as a team that needs a big win. Sure, Dallas is still competing with Philly, I guess. They still have some hopes for the 1 seed and the division, but they're really sitting in the 5, and that might be where they wind up. And teams have gone and got in Jacksonville. I think that happened. I think that's my prediction of underdog of the week.
I like it a lot. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has been playing like a top 10 quarterback over the last 4 weeks or so. I think he's 10 touchdowns, 0 picks in the last 4 weeks. He's been exceptional. He's utilizing every weapon that they've brought in for him to their max capacity. Evan Ingram's become a fan favorite of his. Christian Kirk has obviously become, he's really living up to the money they paid him, as dumb as that may sound. And even Zay Jones, I mean, who would have thought a guy like Zay Jones would turn things around? These guys haven't been great, but they've been good enough for what Trevor Lawrence has needed them to be. And, next year they get Calvin Ridley. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the come up quick. And I think that defense is, needs a little bit of sharpening, in some certain areas. But at the end of the day, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is, really turning a corner, especially these last few games. And, a team like Dallas, like you said, looking vulnerable. This could be a steal. Talking about my pick real quick, I have the Steelers plus 2.5 against the Panthers. The Panthers have looked hot. I mean, outside of some garbage time, which of course they've been a part of a lot, they have a pretty solid core on the defensive side of the ball. J.C. Horn's been playing outstanding. Second-year corner, missed the majority of the first year. He's one of the smartest corners in the league. He's been playing exceptional. Brian Burns, of course, who I honestly think they should have dealt considering the package they were offered, but he's still on the team. Brian Burns is still a cornerstone. This is a defense that is, I think, ready to be a playoff team. And just the quarterback situation, I think, is really what's holding this team back. The offensive line's been playing well. The run game is seemingly improved without Christian McCaffrey. Obviously that might not be directly the case, but it's been rumbling and tumbling at points. And Sam Darnold, I guess, was good enough last week to beat the Seahawks, which was pretty interesting. And I know Matt Canada isn't the greatest play caller. I think that's been a big debate for the Steelers as of late. But I do think the Steelers are due for a win. I feel like I don't know when the last time they won was off the top of my head, but I feel like they've gotten close recently. I thought they should have beaten the Ravens this past week, and they weren't able to. I think this is a game where they're able to bounce back against the Panthers team that I think is getting a little bit more hype than they may deserve, despite how good their defense has been playing. But yeah, I mean, they're going to need Kenny Pickett to be healthy. I think that'll be the big caveat. But I'm going to go Steelers plus 2.5 here against Carolina, who would have thought is favored in a game in 2022.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we'll move on. So we'll get into the last segment of the show. This is the Caveman's quiz game. So I broke it down for you prior, Kevin. I'm going to break it down one more time for everybody watching. So this is how the Caveman's quiz game works. There's 5 NFL quiz questions. You get an off-season events question, which is kind of turned into like a transaction this season events question, a stats question, history, draft, and awards question. Each question is difficulty of easy, medium, or hard. Each has a different point value. If you get that question correct, you get a true-false question, which will be worth half of the original question's point value. You get 1 mulligan per game, which you can hold on to till the end if you want. And then one final wager question, which works like Final Jeopardy. And this is what the leaderboard is looking like. Hans is at the top. Judge had it for a short time. Frank came on, took it, and then Hansel's been holding on to it for the past 2 weeks, and he killed it. So
he seemed to do good. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I'm either dynamite or I'm a all or nothing guy where I'm either gonna crush it or I'm gonna be 1 or 10 or whatever, however many there are. So
that's become the mantra in this game. It seems like people are they're shooting for the stars, hitting for the fences, or they're ended up with a zip. But I respect it. I think it's been a good strategy, and it worked out for Hansel. So
you could nickel dime it too, I guess. Why not?
You could. So let's see what kind of strategy you'll take. So for the first question, we have the off-season events question. Like I said, transactions in general. But do you want to go easy, medium, or hard for this one?
Off-season. Is that history based or is that low? Is that
just this season?
Okay, so that's just this season history. Yeah. We'll go medium to start with. I don't want to start on a burner. All
right, fair enough. He goes medium. I haven't had somebody take anything other than a hard in a while, so this is a breath of fresh air.
Really?
The first question is, where did former Bucs offensive guard Alex Kappa sign this off?
Can you tell me why that doesn't happen? Like, why doesn't someone take that? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Wait. What'd you say?
I said, why do people play medium?
Oh, why don't they play medium?
Yeah. What's the strategy?
I think the strategy for some people is just, I want to get the top spot, and they see 300 or they see 215 and they're like, I got to get, this many points. And some people think they think they can really put the quiz game to their test. So they try their best to,
all right.
So,
all right.
Yeah. I don't know what people's strategy is coming into.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't know how I would play it.
I don't want to be the first to take a medium. Jeez.
No, you're not the very first. Just the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, people have been going hard. It seems like
he signed in Cincinnati.
You are correct. He did sign in Cincinnati, so that is 20 points on the board to start with. So that seemed pretty easy. We'll go right on to the next true false question.
I could see where that'd be. I could see where that'd be hard.
Yeah, it could be, but I think for the most part, most of the people I have on the show are, they're pretty avid football followers. So I think it's pretty up to par. But the true false follow up is the Bucks had been the only team Kappa has played for prior to Cincinnati. Is this true or false?
True.
You are correct. Kappa has not played anywhere else, so that brings you up to 30 points so far on the game. So pretty good start. We'll move on to the second question, being the stats question. This is stats overall. It could be any time in history, but for the most part, I try to.
That could be hard. That could be a hard question.
So do you want to go easy, medium, or hard for this?
We're gonna hit medium again on stats,
right.
Only because hard could put you in a weird position.
Fair enough. He's gonna go medium again. I respect it. The medium question is: who leads the NFL in receiving yards right now?
Ooh, currently, huh? In this season, right?
Yep, currently.
I mean, it's one of two people. I just don't know who took it last week. Is it Justin Jefferson?
It is. You are correct. It is Justin Jefferson. He is ahead of Tyreek Hill by.
He had that 250-yard game.
Yeah, the dude just went berserk. He just passed him this week. So,
that's okay. That's why I was trick. I didn't know.
Yes, exactly. That's why I put it as a medium question, because Tyreek's been leading.
It could have gone 50-50. Honestly, I don't. Yeah, I mean, really, they swap a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, you're up to 50 points now. So we'll get to the true false question, which is going to be this: true false. Justin Jefferson is also the receptions leader so far.
True.
It's actually false. Tyreek Hill has one more reception than Justin Jefferson.
One? See, I was going to get one or the other right. I know he's number one in PPR, so that's why I said true. So that's interesting. Yep. So that's interesting. He is the number one PPR receiver. So it must be something. Maybe I know he doesn't have a lot of touchdowns, though.
No, he doesn't. I think. Well, Tyreek Hill. I don't think Tyreek Hill has that many. Well, it's
interesting. I didn't realize Tyreek Hill had him by one.
Yeah, it's just one reception. So that's fine though. You got 50 points on the board.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it to start off.
Yeah, pretty good start. So we'll get to question number 3. This is the history question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
This is my 2 categories I'm bad at. This one and whatever that last category is you have there. So I'm going easy. I'm not a huge NFL history. Bills history is one thing, not NFL.
Fair enough. All right. So we'll get into the easy question. Which 2 teams were involved in the miracle in the Meadowlands?
Is that the Minneapolis, or you're talking about the miracle in the Meadowlands? Don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know this answer.
That's fine.
As a not big NFL history buff, this is going to be my weakness. But the Meadowlands, I mean, it's got to be the Giants.
Hey, I'll give it to you. The Giants. Do you know who the other team might be? The Giants are one of them.
The Giants would have the Cowboys.
It's not the Cowboys. It was the Giants and the Eagles. The Giants. And the Eagles.
I knew it was a division game though. But no, you don't got to give that to me because I should have hit that.
No,
I'll take the L.
Well, you do have a mulligan, so I'll give you a chance to use the mulligan here if you want to use it for history or if you want to use it on another category.
So mulligan lets you redo another segment, like
you can do another category.
I'll save it because that's not my category.
All right, fair enough. So we'll save it. We'll go on to question number 4. This is the draft question. 50 points on the board as a reminder. You want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I'm good at hard. I'm good at the draft.
All right, he's going hard. The hard draft question is: picks 50 through 54 of the 2022 NFL draft featured 4 wide receivers out of the 5 slots. Can you name 3 of them?
50 to 54. I covered this. I was live on air for this. And this is what's going to throw me off the exact placement of these guys. So I need to name 4 of them.
Just 3 of the 4.
Oh, 3 of the 4.
4, yeah.
Sky Moore.
That is 1.
In that range would have been, because these were right before the Bills pick, and I was like liking a bunch of these guys for the Bills. Now that was definitely before. Okay, so he went earlier. You had Sky Moore there. You had Pickens.
Correct. That's 2.
And then you had. wasn't Christian Watson. It would have been Alec Pierce.
You are correct. Alec Pierce is 3. There you go. That is 3.
Okay.
So that's 30 points.
Okay.
Could you name the last one for shits and giggles?
Was it Thornton?
It was Taekwon Thornton.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. To rack your brain a little bit. Good job. That was a tough one. You were able to pull that one out. Would you have been able to get the order? Were you going through the order if I would have asked it that way? Or would that have been, I feel like that would have been
No, that's really hard.
Yeah, that would have been really hard.
Yeah, because trades and that makes it way too. No, probably I could have gotten close, but probably not. No,
fair enough. I figured that would be too hard of a question. But
yeah,
there you go.
That's like extra hard.
All right. Well, you have 80 points now due to that. The next true false for the follow up is this. This was the only time in the draft that 3 wide receivers went in a row. Is this true or false?
At any time, like any point of the draft.
Yep.
Ooh. That sounds false, but why would you ask that if it true?
It was not true. It was false.
Okay. See, I just figured it was false, but it was like such a trick question.
It was the first round. It was Olave. What was it? Olave, Wilson, and Jameson went all in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know what the order was exactly, but in the first round, 3 did go in a row. But that's fine. You have 80 points on the board, and you have a mulligan and one final question left, and then a wager. So you still have a very good shot at this thing. So the final question number 5, is going to be the awards question. Do you want to go the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Well, and then you said awards can just be any mishmash.
It's not going to be like assistant coach of the year award or like anything ridiculous. It's primarily the large awards that they give out.
Medium.
All right, he's going to go medium.
I can't go hard. I can't go heavy on it.
Who has more Coach of the Year awards, Vince Lombardi or Bill Belichick?
Oh man, that's a good one because that's another trick question. You got Vince Lombardi named after. Back in the day, Bill Belichick.
You're right. It is Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick.
It's trick though. I almost win Vince Lombardi.
I've used this question one other time.
Oh, have you?
The person did go with Vince Lombardi, but you are right. So that's another 20 points. You're up to 100.
Right. I'll take it.
The true false follow up is going to be this: true or false? They both have 3 or more.
They both have 3 or more each. You're saying?
Yeah.
Like each of them have 3 or more. I know he does. True.
It's actually false. Vince Lombardi only has 1.
2? He has 1.
2 is
I knew Bill Belichick did.
Yeah, Bill definitely did. That's it's the Vince Lombardi. I couldn't when I was looking up.
Yeah, the one from Vince Lombardi. That's a super trick question.
And same. It kind of reminds me of like Josh Allen only having 1 Pro Bowl. It's like, how does Josh Allen only have 1 Pro Bowl?
I guess that's true.
It's
that's
similar
weird
to,
sometimes,
like,
especially
kind of
back then.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, not bad though. 100 points, and you have the mulligan. So,
okay.
Which category do you want to go back to?
Which means I get okay. We'll go
stats, history, draft, awards.
Not history. So we're gonna go back to. I played the hard in the draft already, though. I guess we'll do medium in the draft.
All right, medium draft. What was the name of the player caught up in the catfishing hoax? Oh wait, this is freaking history. My bad.
Oh, I knew that.
You can have that.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
Manti Te'o.
There you go, Manti Te'o. I can't believe that.
I'll take it. No, see that. So okay, so that was a question I knew. It was just, but I didn't know that easy.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I put that easy.
See, that one is easy. See that you should have flipped those.
Okay, fair enough. I probably should have, because especially with the documentary that just came out recently with it.
That probably did. I would have known that one, but it probably did turn that into an easy. That one. So I see. I don't know. I didn't know what year was that Eagles Giants game.
So there was an original Miracle in the Meadowlands, thing in 1978. But then there also was a second version of it when Deshaun Jackson returned that punt when he picked it up and then returned it against the Giants. I'm sure you've seen that clip 1,000 times. Yeah. That was the second version of it. But so that was
okay.
I don't know the Meadowlands. I assume.
Okay, now
Giants, but
Giants.
But 120 points. You have the true false follow up still for this question, which is he was drafted in the first round. Manti Te'o, true or false?
False.
You are right. He was not drafted in the first round.
He waited. He waited in the room. I remember that. The draft's my category, so I'll take that.
All right, there you go. So you're up to 130 points after the 6 questions.
I'll take it.
And you have room to work here. You have a wager question. How many points do you want to put on it here? This could be any of the categories. It's not going to be like hard difficulty. It's probably closer to tougher medium is usually
tougher
where I range
medium.
these questions.
Tougher medium. And what's Hans have? 300?
300. Oh yeah, let's go back to the leaderboard.
I can't get him, so I'm not gonna get crazy.
Where can I take this?
I'm gonna try to go for second probably.
So this is what we got. This is what the leaderboard's looking like with 130 points.
Where's 130 sit now?
130 would put you. Oh, I'd have to get I have like an entire
It doesn't. It's not that big of a deal.
But
so there's no reason then to not wager whatever beats 214. I'll wager.
All right, so that would be math that I suck at math, man. What was it? 214 minus 1. Would that be the right math? So 84 points would be
85.
Okay, so he's gonna put 85 on the line. So that is going to be what he's wagering. 85 points to try and take the second place spot. This is the wager question. Here it is. Wager for 105. Oh, I forgot to wait. No, wait a minute. I forgot to put the banner in. We just talked about that. Okay, here we go.
One.
Let me retype it. I forgot to put it in real quick. Who was? This is awkward.
No, that's fine. It's not. It's just a fun trivia game. I
mean,
it's
not for $100,000.
Yeah, it's for second place here. This isn't for. This isn't even for first.
All right, so here you go. Your wager for 85 points. Ironically, another Pro Bowl question, but who were the Bills Pro Bowlers last season?
Nominated or showed up, or what do you consider?
Played in the game.
Played in the game, because that always confuses me with who was actually nominated and doesn't go.
Right.
Yeah, obviously we have Micah Hyde. Obviously Jordan Poyer's never been nominated, which is terrible.
I didn't even know that.
Which is a joke. Deion Dawkins.
That is one of them. Yep, that is one of them.
Tremaine Edmonds.
It was not Tremaine Edmonds. I'll give you one more crack.
What did you hear? Did you hear my Micah Hyde?
Oh no, it was not Micah Hyde. Oh no, I didn't hear that one. But no, it was not Micah Hyde.
Who was it with Deion?
Stephon. It was Stephon Diggs.
I didn't know that because he was playing defense against his brother.
Yep, him and Trayvon were going back and forth. But yeah, hey, it was a good run though. I appreciate your strategy with the whole thing. Everybody.
I tried to go middle ground in this game, except my top category. I was one player off from getting the second.
Yeah, I mean, everybody comes on here buck wild trying to just shoot for the fences. So you tried something that was actually strategical, and I appreciate that in your game. So
I figured let's get into I don't think I was getting to 3 without a monster game. So I was like, let me just get in a second, and one player away from. And those years are so muddled in the Pro Bowl, and people get nominated, and but I do remember Deion for sure though.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, though. You had a good run, and I appreciate you, Kevin, for sure, for taking the time to show up. I know you had your show.
Thank you so much.
It means a lot that you took the time to join, man. It really does.
That's awesome. I appreciate you, man. That's a fun game, dude. I'm sure my 85 knocks me to the bottom of the list, but it was a good run. I appreciate being on your show, dude. And it's you have a really cool segment where it's not just Bills focused. So I talk Bills all day, and then I go into a space and talk the Bills, and then I'm listening to more Bills, and I forget the rest of the league exists.
Yeah, I know. I hear you on that.
So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, of course, man. So thank you for taking the time. So for anybody that was watching tonight, I appreciate it. Drop a like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Be sure you're checking out Kevin, Cover One, Going Deep Podcast, all going to be linked down in the description below. All their socials are going to be down there. So be sure you're checking that out. And once again, thank you for hopping on. Thank you to anybody that stopped in. I will see you guys next week, and go Bills.
See you later.